they have after that certain threshold you reach and the
Hmm.
lactic acid kicks in, and then they think, oh no, this is it, I got to pull out, and then they actually still have a few more kilometers in them.
Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon is like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people.
That used to be me, but not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick, aka Warwick Runs on different platforms. Really happy to have you here. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Today is a different kind of episode. We're not talking to a runner, but we're talking to someone who's really helping runners. If you followed me on my channels, you know that I've been using the FlexBeam for a long time. And today we have the founder of FlexBeam or Recharge Health with us, Bjørn Ekeberg. I am really curious to hear from Bjørn in terms of what his intentions were or what his goal was when he started this, and how he came to kind of find that infrared light was so good for you, why this product could help so many people. I was first introduced to this product through my mother-in-law, and it's really helped me when I've had small niggles here and there. And I try to use it whenever I feel something, but I also know that I could have used it more for recovery purposes. And I know that Bjørn has obviously a lot of input on this, and I'm curious to hear his take on that. So, without wasting any more time, I'm just going to jump straight to the conversation with Bjørn. And again, thank you for listening to the Marathon Podcast. Bjørn, welcome to the Marathon Podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Christian.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. I just made the introduction here before you logged on, and I was talking about how I've been using FlexBeam for a few years already in my training and as an athlete, and you have a very, very close relationship to FlexBeam. Why don't we start with what your relationship actually is to FlexBeam?
Well, I'm one of the co-founders, and it's about six and a half years ago that I met my other co-founders at the time that had stumbled across research that had taken them aback on the effects of near-infrared light specifically, and also red light. At the time, it wasn't even commonly called red light therapy. It was called photobiomodulation. And the research also blew me away. And one of those co-founders that had just teamed up with the product guys who knew how to make potentially a lamp or a device around it was a clinical doctor, like a medical doctor who runs her own clinic in the UK, who has worked with laser and other light technologies for decades and had a dream that this is something that needs to be in every home in the future, that people will just want to have if you can just create it in such a convenient and good device form, then people will want to use it. Why haven't people heard about this? And that was sort of my entry point into it as well. I was very skeptical at first, and then I started digging in, and I became convinced that this is one of those, the next thing that one day will be in every household, because it has, if you use it the right way and have the right tool, it is kind of a paradigm shift within health and how you can improve your own body. So I got really sort of excited, and I left a career at high speed that I was working on just to kind of dedicate myself to this full time.
Cool. And what would you say that, like, because I'm sure there are a lot of things when you were first introduced to this. You said you were skeptical, but when you started thinking that, oh, maybe there's something to this, do you remember like one specific thing that made you realize that, okay, this is something worth spending a lot of time and resources on?
There were two overlapping factors in the first couple of months. One was I have a researcher background. I did a PhD many years ago in philosophy of science, and I delved a lot into the foundations of physics and around energy, and I've written a book about the cosmos and sort of things that I had put aside. Uh, when I met these guys, it wasn't really on the forefront of my mind. It's something I did in the past, but I always had an interest around the question of the sun and energy and physics and how it hangs together. And for me, there was a something that clicked in, because what we are going to talk about here, red light and near infrared light, is part of the sun's energy in a particular part of that spectrum, right? So for me, it was like the nerd level. It kind of clicked in. And then when I started looking into the actual studies and the research, I saw, okay, these are like thousands of studies and they're all like peer reviewed. NASA's been involved. Like there's obviously something here. So that cleared my first skepticism. But as usual, with these kinds of things, the proof is in the actual like results, right, and their actual effects. And one of the first prototypes that we developed, or that the team developed, they asked me to make a little film interviewing the people who had been using it first. Before I even got to try it, I had tried a lamp once, but I couldn't really tell. But then I got to interview people like behind the lens on the other side, interviewing people who had been using it. Some of them were more elderly, but there were people who had given up on being able to walk up the stairs, right? And suddenly had circulation in their legs again. And like we filmed them being able to walk up the staircase again, and they were able to move again. They had circulation in their feet. Pain was gone. And so being face to face with it, that's when I made sort of decision that this cuts a lot deeper. My initial involvement was like, okay, I'll make a film for you. You were a photographer and filmmaker yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a little bit of this, okay, yeah, sure, it's a great story, and I'll, interview
Mm-hmm.
people and so on. But it really caught me. And at the time I was working as a showrunner for a Netflix show and like these kinds of things that I had, or things that I had done in the past, being a screenwriter and filmmaker. And it became really hard after I made that first film, interviewing these people up close and seeing the real effects, to go back into a line of work in which I'm competing for somebody's eyeballs on the bus when they're
Mm-hmm.
swiping from left to right just to feed another piece of content. This was something that actually, it was really had an impact on people, and a really significant one as well. So it really got to me at that level. And then as I started using it myself, I did also notice my own personal benefits. But I don't have a hallelujah story. I'm blessed with not having sort of any major aches and pains and stuff myself. But I have found it very, very beneficial for myself as well.
Yeah. It's really cool to hear, and I also love what you're saying about the impact, because I definitely can feel that in the world that we live in right now with all the social media. My clients, they want these hooks that will grab your attention immediately, and obviously I'm happy that my clients want that, but I also appreciate the most when I can make those things that actually have an impact on people. And I assume that for you having a product like this, you're not just making an impact through videos or photos, but you're actually making a physical impact and obviously a mental impact on
Yep.
on people. So that's yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to have experienced it myself. Like I told you just before we started recording, that the product really helped me before Boston Marathon, when I was having a lot of niggles and pain here and there. Not like big injuries, but enough for me to struggle to run. And then after a couple of weeks of FlexBeam every day, I was able to start running without pain, and that helped me a lot. So yeah, I'm super curious to hear more about the product, although I've obviously tried it myself. But before we do, just so we don't lose the listeners here, because I know that there are a lot of runners, a lot of athletes, endurance athletes here, and uh, just to kind of establish what the FlexBeam does. I mean, we're talking a lot about saunas and cold plunge and all of the things that you do. Like people are probably dreaming about making those at home. But this
Yeah.
unit of yours, I guess you have it here. It's not
Yeah.
not very big, but it can really change people's lives in a lot of ways, I would say. So introduce
So
that, and especially for athletes.
yeah, so I'm for those who are watching, I'm holding it up here. It's a belt with 3 light pods basically that would fit around the small of your back, or it would curves around your shoulder, or your elbow, or your knee, or hip, or anywhere. The basic idea where we started, what we wanted to create was a really powerful device that packs the same power punch as like a large panel, basically, with multiple lights, packs it into a belt, and it goes straight on your skin. And the reason is that the mechanism of red light therapy, or near infrared and red light, these wavelengths we can talk a bit more about, are about penetrating the skin and stimulating the cells. So this is a kind of a cellular treatment. So it's different from heat treatments like sauna or cold plunging, which are thermal treatments. These are wavelengths that actually stimulate the mitochondria in your cells to produce more ATP, which is the energy currency in the cells, which basically makes them more effective at doing what they need to do. And this releases a whole host of sort of cascading effects, release of nitric oxide, reactive oxygen species, and all kinds of sort of chemical cocktail that follows from this process. But this is really unique to this kind of light, right? And there are many ways you can get this kind of red and near infrared light. But what we found when we started is that if you buy a panel, which is the most common way, one of the challenges is that you have to have it far away and you lose a lot of the power from the light. And not a lot of people think about this, but if you are just 15, 20 centimeters or like 5, 10 inches away from the panel, you already lost a significant portion of the output, right? So the only way to make sure you have the right dose, which is the crucial part of this, so you get the right output, is that it goes straight on your skin. Now, it's not that easy actually to put it straight on your skin because it would get hot, and like these are very powerful lights. So we had to build in cooling and a heat sink and everything to make that work. But this is why we are confident, and we look at all of the different things out there that our differentiation is that we're more effective because we can penetrate more deeply. So with the FlexBeam, you can get like into an elbow joint, or if you think of your hip or your knee, you can light it up from 3 different angles, like the light beams. And if you imagine they penetrate 3 to 4 inches in at the most, right? So from each angle, you can actually get in and treat a meniscus joint, for example. And this is really unique. Like you cannot really reach these kinds of like deeper parts of your body, where often a lot of the pain and the inflammation and a lot of the sort of the issues or strains, they sit like far beneath the skin. So that's why we started to do, like we set out to do this, is to sort of innovate, get red light therapy into a form that is more effective and that is also much easier for people to use. Because if you use it more frequently, it works better. Most people don't get results from just using it once. And I don't know how it's been in your experience, if you've used it sort of cumulative over time or right before or after.
I've so for me, I've usually had it like, say, after a run, when I come back and I might feel a little niggle and feel something there, and then I will usually, you obviously know the specifics in terms of minutes, but these are like when you turn it on once, right? It goes for 10, 15 minutes or something like that, and then it turns off. And I usually do 2 rounds of that. I don't know if that is what's recommended, but I've usually done like 2 rounds of that. And
Yep.
I love when I start feeling that heat. There's almost like, it's like you're saying, the light, the unit itself is gets pretty hot, but the times when I've felt that it really works, then it feels like everything inside of my muscles or it just seems like it gets hot, and
Yep.
then I really feel like it's working. And so like I said, 2 rounds of that, maybe even 3 at times if I've really felt like I needed it, and that has definitely helped my recovery and helped me get rid of those niggles when I've had it.
No, that's great. And that's a typical use case as well. So each session of a FlexBeam is 10 minutes. Sometimes 10 minutes is enough, and often 20 will give you even more of an effect. Some of the protocols that we've made, and Dr. Zulia Frost, who's my co-founder, that sort of really convinced me that this was a much bigger thing than just a device. Initially, she has created, I think now, over 100 protocols that we offer our members for free. Then protocols are just basically placement guidelines and guidelines for you to, like, how often to use it in order for you to stay within the dosing window. And this is a crucial part about red light therapy, is that it won't work if you don't get enough, but it also won't work if you get too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There is a sort of a sweet spot. It's not super precise, so you can't miss it by a minute, but doing 20-30 minutes of FlexBeam a day is, for most people, within that dosing window where you do get a response. So we worked a lot on trying to tailor this to people. Everybody's different, but most people follow within a certain window. And to also offer then practical placement guidelines for example, for runners, like for specific issues, for knee issues, hip issues, and flat foot, like all kinds of things. We have a protocol for that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
But you've a lot of people are like you; they experiment on their own as well, and that's why we designed it to be easy, right? You just turn it on and you find your own spot.
Yeah, and I've obviously like you said, I've just been experimenting myself and just trying it out. But for runners, since this is a running podcast, what I haven't done too much of is to use it whenever I do not have pain. So I tend to, like, if I have weeks or days, months without having any niggles at all, then I feel invincible. And kind of like with any treatment, I just forget about it because I don't have an issue. But I always have the FlexBeam next to my desk here because I've usually just used it while working and stuff like that. But it also had me thinking, I was thinking about the other day that I probably should have used this also when I'm not really feeling any pain or when I'm struggling, just to maybe, enhance my performance in terms of the recovery process or things like that. And for runners who are, interested in red light therapy and the FlexBeam, and if they have one or if they get one, how can they use that also regardless of injuries?
Yeah, so this is where it gets interesting, really, because if you can manage to kind of get it into a daily ritual or follow a longer term plan with it, the cumulative benefits just rise, right? We see this a lot in our users. The ones who report the most satisfaction are the ones who are using it the most regularly. And the typical protocol that Dr. Zulia Frost has designed, the typical thing is 5 days on, 2 days break, 5 days on. So you don't have to do it every single day for a month or two, but consistently, so regularly. Some of our, like, we are amassing or accumulating a lot of sort of user cases. And now, I don't know if you have an Aura Ring or a Garmin or some sort of tracking device.
Too many of them. I have an Aura Ring and I have Garmin, I have Coros, and I've been also using Whoop. So I'm very much a geek.
It's like too many of them, and they become very, very popular very quickly. And this gives a lot of users actually data points on themselves, right? So one of the things we've been able to establish for people that that share their data with us is, for example, your baseline HRV will improve over time if you use one of our protocols that are more systemically oriented, like center of the body, for example. We have a specific protocol for that, like Energy Boost. And if that over time, it could take 2 to 3 weeks, but you will see your baseline HRV improving. That's the impact of red light therapy cumulative over time. This might be a little bit invisible to you when you're not in pain, right? But this builds up the foundation, sort of. That builds your system to be a bit stronger, and you're more prepared for that run. So we tend to have our users, and we have 35,000 customers now. And growing like very fast because people are discovering this as a very important tool to have for themselves. They tend to fall into either of two categories. One is the more pain injury. I have something I really need to fix now, and then it becomes your go-to best friend if you're in pain, for example. But the other category is more long-term, like health optimizing and also optimizing performance. That is more the regular use. And a subcategory, this is preparation for a run. I don't know if you ever tried to use it before you run.
No. Curious to hear about this.
Yeah, this would be an interesting thing to try. We're doing a larger sample size now. We've worked with quite a few runners over the years who report to us that when they use it, for example, on their thighs before running, they have a little bit more to give when the lactic acid response kicks in. This is like, of course, this is subjective, but it's multiple people reporting a very similar kind of thing is they have after that certain threshold you reach and the lactic acid kicks in, and then they think, oh no, this is it, I got to pull out, and then they actually still have a few more kilometers in them,
Wow.
right?
So
So
it
it gives
could
you
be
more energy in the tank. So it's a
so-
way of sort of charging your muscles.
yeah. So a
Yeah.
perfect tool kind of for like in the morning of the marathon. Like for me, for
Yep.
instance, I usually get up very early because I need to eat like a
Mm-hmm.
few hours prior to the marathon, and then I have a couple of hours there where I don't really know what to do. So that would have been a perfect thing to do actually before the marathon, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a good. Our doctor recommends within an hour of the run, like close to it, as a part of your sort of warm up prep.
Yeah.
Of course, you can't do like every part of your body or anything, but if it's, for example, the thighs, like your quads, often, like for a lot of people, that hurts the most. If you have a weaker spot in in your calves or like hamstrings or something, is to use it there prior to a run, which will help sort of prevent. So any injury spot or any spot that's prone to injury will become warmer and looser and have a bit more energy to give before the run. So that's a practical tip for running that I think it's worth trying.
Yeah, definitely. I think that as runners, and I'm a great example of that. When you ask me if I have an Aura ring, and I just list all the things that I have, we're very into the gadgets and all of those things. And obviously, with infrared light therapy, I've heard a lot about it on podcasts before. Also, before I heard of FlexBeam, and you hear about these big beds, and they're like hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. And I guess like what makes FlexBeam stand out is that you can actually just bring it with you. So if you are doing a marathon and on the other side of the world, you can still bring it with you, and you can have it with
Yeah.
you.
It's battery powered and rechargeable, so you can stick it, or you have lots of people take it with them on the plane and use it on the plane, or like it's easy to bring. And this is part of the idea that you have something that's powerful enough to really give you an effect, but actually that you can bring with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did mention in the introduction here, you were referring to the sun, and I think that a lot of people, just to kind of and I want you to silence the criticism here, or the haters, if you can call it that, because I think that a lot of people will say that, oh, this looks like a sunbed, right? Like that it reminds them of something that it's like hot and it's light, and they're used to that being something that is kind of dangerous, not good for your health. I obviously know that you've done a lot of research on this, and that's not the case. But for those now listening to this, and they're like, "Oh, is this really good for you?" What would you say?
Yeah, because it's a radiation of a kind,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a very important thing because we tend to not really think about light. Light is something, and especially the sun, it's just something we take as a given. If anything, in our culture, we are just taught to be like very careful of the sun and like to not have sun exposure, and sun can be dangerous. But the sun is a complete spectrum of electromagnetic energy, or we call it the electromagnetic frequency band, is how we place different kinds of energy or different kinds of light. And there's only a tiny, tiny portion on that wide spectrum that's what we call visible light, from blue to green to red. Red is the warmest or the longest wavelength of the visible. But actually, the spectrum is vastly greater. There are lots of things that are always affecting us that we just don't see. So on the one side of that spectrum, of blue in the middle, and on that side is, for example, ultraviolet, very, very short wavelengths. Some of those wavelengths are the ones that make you tan, that your response in your skin, and some of them are associated with potentially being cancerous if you overdo it, right? So those tanning beds, for example, they have UVA, UVB, like they have a sort of a spectrum in there to give you the tan. And then people can debate whether that's healthy or not. There's like pros and cons, but that's a different part of the spectrum. It is off of the red side of the spectrum where the wavelengths get longer. That's what's called the infrared. And infrared is associated with heat, but is a very, very wide spectrum. So 53% of the sun's energy that we get is in the infrared range. We don't see it, but we can feel it. So when
Yeah,
you look
because
at the sun,
That's what I heard about, like getting out in the morning, especially in like with the morning sun, when the
Yeah.
sun rises, that it would be really good for us to kind of get out there. And if it's not too cold, obviously here in Norway it's a bit too cold to do that in the winter, but to get out and just like stand there in your underwear and just let the sun hit you for a couple of minutes, and that would kind of give you a lot of the same effect that infrared light therapy. I remember listening to a podcast about this. I'm not sure if that
Yeah.
is the case, but yeah.
It's a good idea to do, and I swear by it when I can go outside in the mornings for two reasons. One is that then at sunrise and at sunset, the light is more red because it's more of the sun's energy is shifted into the red and near infrared range.
Mm-hmm.
So proportionally, there's just more near infrared light, and it's actually known in for people who follow the yogi tradition, for example, and really go like back in time. It has been known in like Sanskrit and original teachings that doing yoga at sunrise was supposed to have a particular healing effect. These kinds of things were sort of known a long time ago. There's something special about the light at dawn or just around sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
The same can be done for sunset as well, which has the same, it's the same at a different time of day. The second reason it's a good idea is it helps to reset your body clock and circadian rhythm. So when you get sunlight in the morning, it actually helps you sleep better at night, right? So something like red light therapy, like using a FlexBeam in the morning if you can't have sun, can also actually help your melatonin cycle of the day. That's a different use case than straight up help for runners, but it's a very powerful application for if you're into health optimization in some way. But but that light that we see in the morning, that is more of it in the infrared range.
Yeah. And you did mention already that you are testing things with runners and that you've kind of seen trends. Can you say a little bit more about that, if we can call it research that you're doing with runners and the FlexBeam, and how they're benefiting from that?
Yeah, so we've been doing this on mostly on a case study basis and like limited groups because we just simply can't afford like large clinical trials at this point. But runners, there are more runners, and there are runners that have the gadgets, so that have the data points.
Yeah.
So they've been able to share stories and cases with us, and we're working to actually systematize this. We have a membership program now that just it's free for anyone who buys a FlexBeam, that has some of these protocols, etc. We are inviting people to share their data with us in sort of focus groups. The overall like benchmarks, I touched on HRV. That's like a biomarker that can be affected. One of the most interesting peer-reviewed studies that's come out recently. There's been a few, but one was a standout that was not runners, but it was like footballers, so professional athletes, working with VO2 max. I don't know if did you ever test your VO2 max?
I actually did 2 days ago.
Did you?
Yeah,
How was that?
it was fun. I mean, I've done it several times before, but I did a 2:47 marathon 10 days ago, and I was curious to see what that equaled in a VO2 max. So I mean, it's a hard test, and I was fairly happy with the result. I had 66. Kind of want to get back to the 70s. My best result back when I was a speed skater was 76, so then I was pretty high. But
oh wow,
yeah. So
it's a really strenuous test, so it's not exactly like regular user friendly because you have to run on a treadmill and have a big mask. And
I actually made a video on this, so for the listeners who are curious about what it looks like, they can head over to the YouTube channel and watch that.
That's cool.
Yeah, a little bit of self promotion here, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's super cool. So one of the reasons we're interested in VO2 max, because there was a big study done that followed then professional athletes who run a lot, even if they're not marathon runners, that did VO2 max tests like you just did. One group got red light therapy prior to running. They used very similar wavelengths that we have in FlexBeam and roughly within the same kind of dosage, equating to between 10 to 20 minutes of FlexBeam before. Another group thought they got red light therapy, but they just got red light, like just the bicycle light, and a third group got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they followed these over time, right? So like classic setup of a case. And VO2 max, it's very complex, but it's broken down by 4 different parameters to get you a VO2 max. Like that number that you quoted is actually made up of
Yeah.
several. It's a composite number.
Mm-hmm.
The red light therapy group performed better on all the different metrics. On average, had a 27% higher VO2
Wow.
max result from it. And this was not an isolated tiny study. It was quite large, and we've seen the pattern in other places. So this is something that we're very keen to test further with specifically our device. These are results that are almost in the same range as what some athletes who go to the mountaintop
Yeah. Yeah.
to like
Altitude.
train
Altitude.
altitude
Yeah.
training. Thank you. That also get sort of comparatively these kinds of results.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there's some people have joked that it should be kind of like doping before a run, but
Yeah.
because it's light, it's natural energy,
Mm-hmm.
is not considered cheating. But it's something that can clearly give an edge, at least in the research. So we think that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, when you're told me that it could maybe improve your performance, if you took it before a race, that in my head that makes sense in a lot of ways because, like you said, it warms up your body. There's there are things that are happening over a short amount of time where it's just like, okay, that makes sense. But when it comes to the VO2 max, you would just think that a tool like the FlexBeam or infrared that it wouldn't really help you on that. Why do you think that is? What happens to the body that makes the body kind of improve on those metrics?
I think if you use it on your lungs, for example, like over your lungs, so you can. This is something I often do at nighttime, or if I have to recover from a cold or something, is you put it over your upper chest. Remember, you penetrate like quite deeply. Mitochondria you have all over your body. It's been estimated 10% of your body weight is mitochondria, which is, I don't know how they calculated that, but it's basically everywhere, but it's particularly packed in your organs, right? So it's unevenly distributed. You have a lot of it in like your liver and your gut, and you also have a lot of it in your lungs. So the whole capillary system, if you imagine the lungs, they are packed with mitochondria. So this is a tool that actually um, gives you a way to stimulate and charge them very directly. I think that is part of the answer, but I'm a little bit baffled myself after years of working with this sort of the research mechanisms, and there's lots of things that are established, but there's also some things we don't quite know yet around exactly how it works on the mitochondria.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of mind blowing, but I also feel like because it's like you said when we started this conversation, you said that you were very skeptical in the beginning, and I feel like all new products on the market, people will obviously be skeptical, and when they hear about these things, they're like, no, but that can't be like like how can it be that a product like this actually helps me recover faster, or even more so, improve your VO2 max, but like although it's hard to believe, I've seen the effects myself, so it's easier to believe, obviously. But what I like about it when you're talking about this is because I immediately uh, picture a family and my fiance. Whenever I am getting myself a new pair of shoes, she's kind of laughing at me. She's okay with it, but she laughs at me, and I just like picture in my head. Uh, a runner who is very into running and comes home with another unit like the FlexBeam. And what's good about this is that it's not just the runner at home that can actually benefit from it, right?
No, that's how we conceived it originally, and that's sort of our vision when we started, was this should be in every household because it is your go-to thing that many people can use for different reasons. It's sometimes hard to communicate what it can do because it can do so many things, so therefore it seems like it's just too much or too good to be true. But we noticed, for example, over the years, in the last year especially, we have many more buyers that are female than male. And one of the responses or that we uncovered in surveys and when we talk to people and we see who's buying it, is that it's a massive pain relief for period cycles, for example. I think also women generally at risk of overgeneralizing, but are a little bit more in tune with their bodies and their health, and they're not afraid to talk to other people about what might work.
Yeah.
Guys tend to be a little bit more like, oh, I can deal with it. I don't want to tell anyone I'm in pain, right? So the pain aspect and all the different ways you can target things that are a little bit more intimate and closer. I think this is one of the reasons why a lot of women embrace FlexBeam as a go-to friend. So it's hard to conceive sometimes of something that can help you with pain that can also then boost your performance, right? But that's really what you have with this kind of technology.
Yeah. And then in terms of like, because now we obviously talked about how it can enhance your performance, but I also know that uh, you guys have been talking about how it can prevent injuries. So one thing is
Mm-hmm.
if you have a niggle, but what have you been able to look at that at all? And I guess like it's hard to tell whether someone would have been injured if they didn't use it or not. But for me
Yeah,
now that
it's hard to run a study on it. But when I started with Dr. Zulia here, the initial idea that she had was it's preventive. Like that's actually the most powerful way, that if you use this and you know part of your body is a little bit weaker than somewhere else, or you have a certain problem spot, if you work on that and just have it daily, if you really sort of mindful and you just apply it, then things or problems or niggles that you would normally expect to become much worse than a problem, they just go away, right? So you can prevent things from happening. However, most people are not proactive, they're reactive,
yeah,
right? So it's
I'm one
usually
of them.
that. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, I'm guilty of the same. I know however much biohacking I do and the health optimization, I follow all these channels. I also tend to just put it away sometimes and just, oh, and now I'm in pain. Now I use it, right?
Yeah.
But it's why most people sort of buy it for a particular reason, that they did hurt themselves or injure themselves to try it. But then once you get into using it, it can become a very nice ritual in your day, and you always have time for it in a way, because this is why we designed it, so that you can strap it onto your body or whatever. You can do other things while you are doing it. You don't have to undress in front of a panel 20 minutes a day.
Mm.
You can like cook dinner and have it on your back if that's where you're hurting, etc. So if you get that like integration into every day, that is just a go-to, then I think you can avoid a lot of problems.
Yeah, and what you just said there, that's something excuse me, that I wanted to touch on because I've been looking into getting a sauna at home. And then I have a few options, obviously, but one of them is having an infrared sauna. Uh, and that is obviously an expensive investment. It's not something that I really want to spend that much money on. And so if I got one, maybe I wouldn't get a infrared one. Maybe I would get a normal one. But regardless of that, for the people who are, considering getting one of those, and what you just said here of like when you are going into something like that, it's kind of like you might have to leave your phone outside because it gets too hot or those things. The FlexBeam compared to this or the big sunbeds, obviously you can't probably compare it because it's a much smaller unit, but how does it still compare to the bigger ones and the use of it?
So most infrared saunas are typically in what's called the far infrared range. So
Yeah.
they are very different wavelengths. So to give you just an indicator of a metric, an electromagnetic spectrum around 600 to 650 nanometers is red. Near infrared is in the 800 range, so that's invisible, but it still is just close to red. Most saunas are 1,000 to 1,200 to 1,500, like they're quite far off the spectrum. And what happens is when the wavelength is that long, it no longer actually penetrates the skin like near infrared that is able to sort of slip through the skin and get into muscles and tissue. The far infrared interacts with your the water in your skin and therefore induces sweat. Right, so it's not like it goes deeper because it's longer. It induces more powerful sweat than you would from heat alone. And so I think that's why a lot of people feel like infrared sauna is more effective. I think myself, from having looked at the research and talked to experts about this, that it's I would say it's probably a bit of a marketing claim as well, that somehow infrared sauna is better than regular sauna, and it's a trend kind of thing. The net effect is the same because it is heat therapy. It's very good for you.
Yeah.
But a regular sauna will do exactly what an infrared sauna will do. So near infrared in this way is different, right?
So it's
because
not
it's
the
able to actually
infrared-
stimulate your cells.
Yeah, so it's not infrared therapy. It's just the infrared heat gives you something that it's kind of makes it easier to have a sauna without having that the proper saunas, I guess. Like I don't know what's the most expensive to buy these days, but it's
Yeah, I mean it's not cheap to get a regular sauna either, I think,
No,
depending on,
exactly.
but you can at least make it more simply. But simply put, if you're in a sauna, if you're in a regular high heat sauna, it's very, very hot in there. Right? An infrared sauna doesn't have to be so hot because the lights make you sweat anyway. So you can get to the results kind of faster and more comfortably. Some very advanced infrared saunas now have built-in near infrared as well as part of their spectrum. But there you have to pay real attention to how far you are away from the light. Because if you just have a light bulb in the distance or like far away from you, it is not going to have any effect.
No.
And this is really crucial if you look at if you go on Amazon and you look for like red light therapy belts or lamps or something like this, most of the stuff there, if it's relatively cheap, has almost no output. And they will have the same claims, right? But they have basically light diodes that they're not powerful enough to penetrate the skin. And it would be the same for some of the sauna concepts I've seen. They put those lights in there because it's now known that near infrared light is good. But when you look at how it actually hits your body and what it does, minimal effect. Then what you could do is you could have one of these and bring it into the sauna with you.
Yeah.
It will withstand 10 minutes at least in
Yeah.
there, and you can just put it on your back and you just like use that in the sauna.
And obviously the when I'm talking about the things that I've struggled with, so like if I go to a sauna, for instance, because I have a niggle, or when I've been putting the FlexBeam on, or when I'm starting to stretch, do all these things to try to get better, it's usually something about, maybe my calves are tight or my back is a little bit tight. It's nothing that to my bone structure that is really damaged in a way. And for runners, one of the, I guess, like the thing that we fear the most is stress-induced fracture.
Yes.
And as like when you get any bone damage whatsoever, a lot of people, I think, they're like, okay, I just have to wait for it to heal, and it's gonna take some time, and it takes as long as whatever the doctor told me. If say I had a stress-induced fracture right now, I just went to the hospital, they told me that I had it, I got home. Could I then have used the FlexBeam, you think, to kind of speed up that recovery and make that bone heal faster?
100%. Like it will work on that. It will also work on bone healing if you can get deep enough. So if you have a highly penetrating device, right, you can assist your recovery. But if it's bone, it's going to take time, right?
Yeah.
So it's not done in a day or two. And I haven't seen good numbers on exactly how much faster it is with fractures, but with a muscle, like a pulled muscle, for example, will on average go 30 to 40% faster if you add red light to it.
Wow.
So any sort of like muscle strains and torn muscles. For bones, I would expect it to be slower, but still a substantially faster response. And this is something where, to distinguish again with the sauna will help you feel better and it will have all kinds of positive systemic effects. But a sauna and a far infrared sauna will not actually stimulate your cells to grow faster or release osteoblasts into like your bone healing capacity, right? That is only something you can do with near infrared.
Yeah, this is it's super, super interesting, and I can only imagine that people listening to this, whether it's on this podcast or other places, that they must be intrigued. And I want to emphasize when we're talking about this that I'm obviously not getting anything from you guys for for having this. I got a discount code for people to use, but I've just genuinely enjoyed the product. And now that we're getting to the end of our conversation, I'm curious. Like, I'm obviously not a professional runner, but I spend a lot of time running. I've set myself some pretty ambitious goals for the marathon, and I'm curious if you have any like questions or advices for me as a runner now going forward. I'm in my 30s, so obviously I can tell that my body is not as smooth as it was when I was 18, 19, 20. So
Yeah.
yeah.
You mean general for your
Well, I mean, obviously
career as a
connected to
runner? Yeah.
obviously connected to the FlexBeam recovery, preventing injuries, getting out of injuries, and the reason why I'm using myself is obviously because I feel like a lot of people listening to this will probably find themselves in the same situation where they might not be a professional athlete, but they're still ambitious with their running. And at least for me, what I struggle the most with is that heavy or great
Mhm.
mechanical load that running actually is.
No, it's very, very straining on the body, right? So I think I can't give any sort of extremely interesting advice because I think a lot of the baselines that you already know would be the biggest factors, such as getting enough sleep and recovery time. What we often see with athletes is, of course, that they underestimate the time it takes to recover,
Mhm,
regardless of what
mhm.
device you have.
Yeah.
Right? That puts an undue strain on your body over time, and that factor, as you know, also grows when you age. So when you actually need more rest time,
Mhm,
maybe resting is sometimes underappreciated if you really just have to go out and run. So the recovery aspect is diverse, but as you know, it's linked to sleep, which again linked to the melatonin daily circadian rhythm cycle, and then getting enough sunlight.
mhm.
So I would encourage everyone to think of FlexBeam or red light therapy as an extension of the sun in this
Yeah.
case,
Mhm,
as a way for you to make sure that you get access to it. It's a concentrated form of energy that you anyway can get from sunshine, but that you're mostly not getting, and to use that in a way to promote recovery and promote healing. So
mhm.
along with resting, promoting a better night's sleep, then you feel a little bit better again the next day, and you can push a little bit further. This is boring advice, Christian.
No, no, but I think that this is great, and I also think that it kind of proves, you know, in a lot of ways, it's great that you are saying that because it could have been or would have been very easy for you to say, oh yeah, you should just use the flex beam every day. That is like my go-to, but it makes it so much more believable when these are the things you're talking about, because it also proves that just like a lot of the gadgets that we're using, that FlexBeam is a great supplement to those basic things that at the end of the day will help you more. It's like if you're sleeping 2 hours every night and you're eating junk food every day, it probably doesn't matter if you're using the FlexBeam. Then you could have
No,
thrown the
it's
FlexBeam
part of
out and then just
yeah.
slept a bit more, and you would have had a much better effect of the things that you tried to do, right? So I appreciate that you're saying this, and then I guess like uh, yeah, I just think that still was a good answer, although it wasn't in your eyes maybe the most exciting one.
No, but it's like things you probably already kind of know.
Yeah.
And I would like to emphasize it also because it's easy to see a device like this being framed as a kind of it's a magic wand that
Mm-hmm.
just then replaces everything else, or it can do something else that nature can't. It is nature, it's just in concentrated form.
Mm-hmm.
And what is amazing about it, and why I got on board with this when I met Dr. Zulia Frost, we aligned on a vision that this is something that has to do with empowerment, right? It's empowering your body to heal itself. The whole vision when we started is that your body is the most amazing thing in the world. It can do all kinds of things. Can you imagine? You can run 42 kilometers,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
right? And you can recover from that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously the body is not designed for an ultra marathon, but you can do it and you can
Yeah.
still recover from it.
Yeah.
Now, your body is the healer, your body is the force, your body is the power. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it just needs the right energy or needs the right sort of setting in order to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm usually still very skeptical of sort of magic things and magic supplements and all kinds of things. So that's why it's important for me to emphasize that this isn't really magic. It's just that we haven't seen this kind of thing before.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a lot more of it in the future because it's something that really works for a lot of people.
Bjorn, do you have anything that you want to talk about or mention that we haven't really talked about so far in this conversation when it comes
Let's
to
see. No, I think we covered a lot of ground and different kinds of use cases, and then also some sort of stories from runners. It is quite diverse, the different kinds of applications and how it might be used. But I hope your listeners got a general sense of also why not all red light therapy is equal. That dosage really matters, and being able to penetrate and stimulate the cells, that's where the real crux is. So for anyone who is interested in learning more or maybe checking out some of the actual studies behind, if you want to deep dive, encourage everyone to go to recharge.health. That's our website where we have a lot of information about FlexBeam and our scientific studies behind it, and also a lot of our ambassadors, and some of them are runners and a lot of them are athletes and would-be athletes to learn more. So go to recharge.health.
Yeah, no, that's great. And in terms of, there are listeners here from all over the world. Will everyone have access to it? Like wherever they are in the world, can they order the
Yeah,
product?
it's a very small list of countries we're not allowed to ship into.
Mhm.
So if your listeners are not in North Korea or similar, I think we can, in most cases, get a device in if they order one.
Great. Bjorn, thank you so much for your time and for the product. I really, really appreciated that you took the time to come on the Marathon podcast and share this. And I obviously have appreciated the product for a long time and can't wait to try to see. Maybe this will help me get to back in the 70s and with my VO2 max.
Yeah, we can see if we can maybe keep track of your results as they go. We
Yeah,
can
that
give
would
you
be
a
fun.
protocol to try for your next run.
Yeah.
And really appreciate your time also, Christian, and in spreading awareness about this, which is one of the key ways for us to get the message out about what this kind of thing is and for more people to try it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Bjorn. Have a good rest of your day and good luck with everything. And also, congrats on an amazing year. I know that you had a lot of growth, and that's well deserved.
Thank you very much, Christian. It comes from just a product that works. People want it, so that's I'm very happy to see that people like it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, goodbye.
That was Bjorn, who has a lot of knowledge, obviously, about this, and I found it to be super interesting. And for me, this has helped. But I'm also curious about it. I've listened to a lot of podcasts on the topic of infrared therapy and how that has helped a lot of people. You see a lot of athletes, a lot of people using this in their everyday lives or to perform better, to stay injury free. Some people are taking it even further. Not going to go into that, but it's still really nice to hear from someone who is so invested in that technology and obviously knows a lot about it. And I'm really curious about these numbers in terms of VO2 max and using it before races. It almost sounds a bit too good to be true, so I really need to test it out. And I think that it's such a cheap way to just try it out and to use it. And if you're interested in infrared therapy, then infrared light therapy, I guess this is a great way to try it out. If you want to try this out, if you feel like if this made you think that this is something you want to try, you can use the code Warwick Runs at Recharge Health, and you'll get 10% off. I'm not getting anything else than this code from them. I've had that for a while. I just asked them a few months back when I started this podcast because that was a product that I really enjoyed, and I saw an opportunity to just partner up with someone and have an affiliated link. So I'm obviously getting a little bit from it if you buy it, and that would be your way of supporting the podcast. But this episode is not an ad. It's not paid for, and it's just my genuine interest for the product and the technology. I really hope that you enjoy this podcast episode with Bjørn and with FlexBeam and Recharge Health. I appreciate you listening to the Marathon Podcast, and I'll talk to you in the next one. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wall Studio. Peace.